We're going to have about 600 million square feet of space. We're going to have a very big and liquid balance sheet. And one of the priorities of the company is going to be to delever and take the balance sheet from where it is today, which is good, and turn it into one of the best balance sheets in the real estate business. So that's going to provide another really important benefit for the customers, because we'll have the capacity to serve their needs all around the world. When you're focusing on growth rates, obviously China and Brazil are very important stories. China is growing 8 to 10% GDP as far as the eye can see. Brazil is lower than that. It's in the 5% range, but still pretty impressive numbers. And those are off of pretty good sized economies. I mean, China is now the #2 economy in the world, and Brazil is in the top 7 economies in the world. Approaching the top 7 economies in the world. So those are big growth rates on reasonably big numbers. But we shouldn't forget about the established markets, the US, Europe, and Japan. Because even though the growth rate of those economies is lower, their sheer size is massive. You asked about PEPR. PEPR has obviously been an exciting story for us in the last couple of months. But in a way, the challenges associated with PEPR were the best thing that could have happened to our company, because it got the 2 management teams of the 2 different companies during a merger to work together to accomplish something very significant. We now control well north of 90% of PEPR. It is still a public company. At some point, we may privatize it. We may keep it on the balance sheet. We may recapitalize it. But the fact of the matter is that we control over 90% of it. So it's a very important part of our European platform. Strategic to the company, which is why we were so keen on maintaining it as part of the family. And I think there had been some issues with the governance of PEPR. A public company being managed by another public company was not a good idea in retrospect. By the way, most of the investors, the vast majority of the investors, voted for it. It wouldn't have happened without the investors' vote, so it wasn't a terrible idea. Maybe people after a while figured out that it wasn't the best format for it. But ProLogis, just like AMB, has always had a commitment to good corporate governance, and we showed that by creating liquidity for the investors who wanted it. And now we can go capitalize it in a way that is more investor friendly, and that's something that we're standing on the sidelines cheering for and working with the ProLogis management to accomplish.
What would you like, what's the best case scenario for the new company with PEPR? I mean, is it privatizing it? What do you think right now is the best?
Well, a public company that's more than 90% owned by one investor is not truly a liquid public company for the minority investors. So over time, we're going to have to either increase our ownership and privatize the company, or in some form or fashion get this in a more institutionally friendly format through a recapitalization eventually. But it's probably a 2-step process. One is to privatize it, and then second to recapitalize it with institutional capital. But we don't have to do that. We can keep it on the balance sheet the way it is. We're fine with it. For all intents and purposes, we own it. I think if I may answer that question in terms of what is our global asset allocation, which is I think what you're asking for, in terms of gross assets, I would think that North America or the Americas over the long term will be approximately 50% or a little bit under 50%, and Europe and Asia would split the balance. So if you're going to pick some round numbers, call Americas 50, Europe 25, and Asia 25.
That's our revenue. That's asset-based, right?
That's asset-based, but revenues follow asset-based generally in our business. So, I mean, and by the way, we're not blindly wedded to those percentages, but that order of magnitude, plus or minus a few points, is the way our global arc. Actually, I know those numbers really well for AMB, but I don't have exactly those numbers in my head for ProLogis. It's a little light on Asia. It's a little heavy on Europe and the U.S. It's a little more than 50% in U.S., a little more than 25% in Europe, and a little less than 25% in Asia. So we need to increase Asia's percentage over time, and on the margin, reduce the percentage of U.S. and Europe, although with a growing company, all regions will be growing.